All right, welcome to this next week. As before, what I'd like to do is go through each section and kind of explain and actually show you examples of what I'm looking for. So the first link here is going to be a simple Google form, which I'd like you to go through and go ahead and just fill out the information on the form. There's an overview, which is going to do the same thing I'm doing here. There's going to be kind of some pre-reading reflections like we've normally done, little journal entries. This is kind of your big all of your links in terms of it's all in a Google Doc. This type of document is often called a hyperdocument because it's essentially one document that if you even want to save it to your Google Drive for resources, you can. And then whenever I'm able to update it, it's going to just update automatically. So you're going to have a whole bunch of links to kind of read through about data literacy. None of them are too long. There is a report called the Horizon Report here, and it's a few pages long, but you can kind of mostly skim it. It's going to be talking about the Internet of Things, such as the Apple Watch. I know it does, it's 2014, but that's the most recent one. But it is pretty interesting to kind of see what they're talking about and see what's even happened in the last 2 years. So aside from that, there's a discussion about gradebook and grading practices, and some of your readings have talked about how our standard gradebook of ABCD isn't exactly very helpful for what students need. Rick Romelli is a big advocate of standards-based grading. There's also mastery-based grading, which is even different than standards-based grading. And we'll talk a little bit about that this week as well. So the main assignments for this week. So that page is mostly just reading. There's two main assignments. One of them here is on the exploration of data literacy. And this is another sheet talking about how to collect data, how to use data. What I've done, essentially I'd like you to go through and use a formative assessment tool. You can use something called GoalFormative, which is a pretty interesting formative assessment tool because it actually lets students draw pictures back. You can also use Socrative, if you want to call it that. And if you need tutorials, I can definitely point you to some tutorials, although I did embed links to tutorials in the Google document. And then what I'd like you to do is if you can, get student data. If you can't, maybe post your quiz or see if we can get your classmates together on Mooch to go ahead and post about your different data just to get some sample data. And then I actually did link an example document where I used a product called opened.com to make this example. So what I did is I had a bunch of students take this quiz, and then now what I can do is I can talk about this. I can explain the data learnings that I gathered, which I could have seen actually in real time as they were taking it. In this particular case, I could actually click down on the individual student level and also see what students were answering and assign digital learning resources for them. And I could also, I can give you a tutorial to this as well. That's kind of what I'm looking for 5.3 in terms of after you've done the readings on 5.2, and then now you're going to be able to go through and kind of say, okay, how do I want to use this student data in my classroom? So use the sample document to kind of guide your reflection. It doesn't have to be very long. It's just a matter of taking it, look at what your students have done, and then use that to go ahead and assess and find out what you will do next. 5.4 is, again, if you can't do the data analysis part, you can actually just use my sample data. So 5.4 wants you to create some sort of Google form or some sort of spreadsheet of responses. Maybe it's something even as simple as maybe you want to take your students, you used to have student information like their height, or you have their grades or this kind of thing. I want to make sure that you can essentially know how to use a spreadsheet to sort data in an effective manner. So again, if you aren't able to do that this week with Google Forms because of device issues or whatever, feel free to use data that I provided for you here. So you'll notice here on the bottom, I explained an activity that I did that used a shared spreadsheet with students. And that spreadsheet looks something like this. And what you can do is go through, and this is all came from a Google form that looked like this. Students entered the data, and then it went to a spreadsheet here. And then what you would do is you would go through And I would like you to take this data over here, and you should be able to actually sort that in ways that you find meaningful. And so there's a few different ways you can do that. You can go like this, and you would go data, and you would say sort range. Okay, and you can sort things in a different way. You can actually do more than one sort as well. So let's say I wanted to sort this by period, and then within each period I wanted to sort it by the number of pennies. So it would do this. So you notice it's all period 1, but then it's sorted from the lowest pennies to the highest within period 1. Okay, so you can practice some of that. I'd like you to also practice using some functions. So just on the side here, if you want, you could do something like average. And then what you would do is if you wanted to take the average like of all period 1 here, maybe average number of pennies. Okay. And that's going to find the average. What I had done is you can see I'd taken each period and put it in its own spreadsheet to better calculate the averages. So if you want to even show there's different things you can do, like if I wanted to find the average of all of the pennies, of all the classes or something like that, I could do average. And to select, you can do like this. Okay, if I had an average, I would just do it like this, and it just kind of keeps adding on. So lots of stuff you can do. I'm looking to know that you sorted it in a way that you find helpful, and what I'd like you to do is just take a screenshot of that sort. If you want to take this data for yourself, again, just go here and you'd say make a copy, and then for you, it would say add to my drive, and that way you can add this spreadsheet and then take this data and just sort it in ways that you find equitable, and then upload that assignment. So that's what I'm looking for. It's looking that basically, essentially, it talks about the referencing the Bowen text, and there's some interesting data in there, but I realize not all of you were able to do that. So go ahead and just and show this to me. Again, it does say upload spreadsheet, so if you want to just take the spreadsheet that you're working on here, and once you've put some sort of data here showing me how you're using the exploration here, the exploration tools, then you can just upload that document. You just go here to download as a spreadsheet and then upload it back. And so that'd be a great example. The rest of the week, there's also going to be, you're going to be updating your infographic, hopefully now using some of these data tools. So maybe your infographic was about visual literacy. So how are you going to use visual literacy, and how are you going to use data to kind of help your students understand points around that? So maybe you want to give like a random sample survey, asking students questions about what they feel about digital literacy. Maybe you want to measure engagement before and after doing a project around engaging with visual literacy, that kind of thing. I'm looking for any kind of statistics that we can pull and put into an infographic for your final project. So you're going to update that based on some of your explorations of the spreadsheets. And so that wraps up week 5. If you have any questions, let me know. Please email me, or if we want to have a scheduled class, we can maybe do something Tuesday night.